hello, participants, developers, builders, and viewers. Wherever you are, I just want to say hello and hope you're all doing well. Of course, please feel free to get us back in the comments and let us know where you're dialing in from. It's a great way to warm up before we dive into learning from our Hedera experts. Yep. And I'm excited to kick off the first workshop of Hedera Hello Future Ascension. This is the second chapter in the official Hello Future Hackathon Trilogy running from November 3 to 21. So, if you're a returning developer from past Hedera hackathons, welcome back. And if you're new, welcome to the Hedera Hackathon community. You've made a great choice tuning in. Yes. Okay, to give you a context of what this session is about, this is designed for new developers, but also, it offers valuable insights for seasoned Hedera developers looking for a refresher. Sometimes the solution to a bug you're facing or about to face is hidden in the basics. Yes, so during this session, please feel free as well to type your questions in the chat and we'll do our best to address them after the workshop. So stay tuned until the end. There's a lot to cover and learn. This session is entitled All You Need to Know to Start Building on Hedera, and we'll go over SDKs, tools, fundamentals, concepts, and more. And of course, let me introduce our two experts leading this workshop, Ed Marquez, Head of Developer Relations at Hashgraph, and Jake, Developer Relations Engineer at Hashgraph. So yes, I'm passing the stage to Ed and Jake. Take it away, experts.
Hey, Charlene, and thank you. Hello, everyone. Hey, Jake.
Hey there, Ed. How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Very excited to be here, and thank you, Charlene, for that exciting opening. So great to welcome some new developers, new hackers, and also returning developers. If you're planning to participate in that Hello Future Hedera Hackathon, the Ascension chapter, which is the second chapter in our trilogy, as Charlene mentioned. All right, so I'm going to get started here, and I want to motivate this workshop with why blockchain technology, why develop on these decentralized networks. And here's something that this guy said, which is with this decentralized technology, right, with this next generation of the internet, every asset will be tokenized or represented on a distributed ledger. And the benefit of that is that all these assets that are put on distributed ledgers can be fractionalized, shared, and transferred across the world instantly and without intermediaries. So I think if you've been following the industry for the past 15 years, you're familiar with those benefits, with that promise, and you've been following all the technology, right? And this is not just any guy who said this. This is something that came from Dr. Lehman Baird, who is the co-founder of Hedera and also the inventor of the Hashgraph consensus algorithm powering the Hedera network. Right. So if you've been following also the industry in the past few years, you've seen how far we've come in the past few years in terms of openness to the technology, adoption of the technology in real world use cases. So if you're part of this hackathon, if you're planning to participate, that shows your commitment to learning, to building with this technology. And so in this session, we want to give you those tools so you can start building on Hedera and give you everything that you need to know to get started. As Charlene mentioned, we're going to go over how to build on Hedera's EVM, right? Hedera's EVM compatible. And it has very unique things beyond the EVM, right? So you can learn how to program with SDKs for Java, JavaScript, Go, and a few other languages, and also AI agents. So stay tuned for how you can use the Agent Kit SDK for building your own agents on Hedera. So I work on developer relations. I've been part of the ecosystem for 4 to 5 years now. And, I started because of this technology, because of the real use cases that I saw in Hedera. And I'm sure Jake had a similar experience. So Jake, over to you and tell us a little bit about what you do and what brought you to Hedera.
Yeah, so well, as you can tell by our names, we're both in DevRel. Ed's my boss, great boss. I'm not saying that just for the camera. And my main job here at Hedera is really to try and give developers the opportunity to learn and build on Hedera. And obviously hackathons are a great enabler for that, where actually you can get a cash incentive and direct mentorship to do so. So my first hackathon actually was a Hedera hackathon about 3 to 4 years ago. that was really when I was exploring different blockchains. Now I came back from an EVM background, and I was building on Ethereum. I was sort of going through your textbook tutorials and using, at the time it was the Gurley testnet, so Polio hadn't even come out. And it was really interesting. I mean, the whole sort of theory behind blockchain and distributed ledger and decentralization was really appealing. And actually, what happened one time was when I was at university or college, one of my buddies came into my room and started saying, Jake, have you heard about Hedera? And at the time I was like, nah, never heard of it. I then went on to Google it, and being a developer building on Web3, I went straight to the docs. And actually what really appealed to me about Hedera, and this is quite a common trend, is the fact that you can do blockchain stuff on Hedera without it even seeming like you're doing blockchain stuff. And what I mean by that is, traditionally, to do tokens and to do transfers, you need to use the EVM, you need to use Solidity, which is a new programming language, and you need to have you need to overcome the initial hurdle of gas and some of the nuances that Solidity has, compiling stuff, deploying stuff, testing. But with Hedera, as you can see on the screen, we also have SDKs. So you can actually create tokens, you can create accounts, transfer value just by using JavaScript, Java, Go, Python, Swift, C++, the list goes on. We've got a really, really robust set. And it's important to highlight, you're not actually calling the EVM this way. You're going directly to the nodes. You're communicating directly to the nodes. So it's not like a wrapper or proxy over Solidity. No, you're literally getting straight to the nodes, which is why the throughput and the efficiencies are so high. So that I think is really interesting. That's how I got into it. I was sort of playing around, and I was getting really nice, quick feedback. Transactions were being submitted in a matter of seconds, and then obviously evolved, and sort of here I am 3 to 4 years later.
Yeah, that's an awesome and compelling story. And I think a key takeaway there is that whether you're an EVM developer and you love, smart contracts, Solidity, and that EVM world, there is something for you on Hedera. And then if you're coming from the traditional world, SDKs and PM packages or Java libraries, there is something for you on Hedera. And we're going to get into more.
And of course, but we have the hybrid approach as well, right? So it's not only, it's not like I'm EVM, I'm SDK. No, there's the hybrid approach where actually you take the best of both worlds. You use the scalability of the native services, and you couple that with the programmability and extra element of decentralization that smart contracts have. Which, just to call out, when we're looking at these projects that you submit, leveraging that hybrid approach is a really strong way of demonstrating that you've got stuck into Hedera, and it's quite an advanced feature set. So it generally, this is just a tip, it generally scores quite highly.
Absolutely. So let's see now. Let's talk about the technology, right? Let's take a look at the technology stack and see what we mean by the EVM approach, the native approach, and that hybrid approach, as that will make more sense as we go through this technology stack. So the way to understand this from the bottom up, right? So we start with the Hedera network, where you have that powerful consensus algorithm that gives you very fast finality, fixed costs pegged to the US dollar, and also no MEV, deterministic finality in terms of yes or no, as opposed to probabilistic finality with confirmations and so on, and a very high throughput and good characteristics for scalability, right? That's what enables Hedera to perform at the scale that the internet needs today. And so on top of that foundation, that's where you have these services or APIs to perform different operations and build your applications. So if you're an EVM developer, you have the EVM, you have smart contracts, you can use the tools that you already know. But then there's more beyond that you can explore depending on your use case and the requirements for your application, right? So you have a native service for tokenization, where, as Jake mentioned, you can start transferring value, tokenizing things with just JavaScript or Java or Go or Rust or whatever language you're most familiar with. And then you also have a service for consensus. You can think of this as consensus as a service, right? Where you're timestamping messages. You can think of it as a decentralized messaging bus that allows you to create these immutable records and logs to prove provenance, maybe data integrity. But there's an infinity of use cases you can come up with these decentralized messaging buses that are powered by the consensus service. Of course, that's the layer of the network services, and that is governed by the Hedera Council, which I'm going to talk in the next slide. The key here is, when you hear Hedera and Hyro, this is a new term. If you're building on Hedera, that's the key word that you care about. We'll get into Hyro throughout the hackathon, but that's the path if you want to be a contributor, if you want to become an open source developer that contributes to the services, the SDK, and you're very interested in that open source world. And so that Hyro is a very strong commitment from Hedera to donate its entire code base to the Linux Foundation, right? So that's all decentralized, and that lives in the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust as Hyro. So if you hear that, that's the path that is more relevant there. Now, if you're building on this hackathon, building on Hedera, then we can come back here and look at what you can use or the next stack level with those services, right? Where you have the studios and accelerators. So if you're trying to tokenize something, whether it's through, whether it's a bond or a stock or something else, you have the asset tokenization studio. You also have the stablecoin studio that allow you to create and manage your stablecoin in a matter of hours as opposed to days or weeks. You also have the Guardian for sustainability needs and so much more. And of course, these are the SDKs that we're going to touch on during this session. And there's also an AI studio that relates and contains that AI agent kit that Jake is going to get into. So this layer is the tools, the developer tools that you have to build the use cases and applications in different verticals, whether it's DeFi, whether it's tokenization, ESG, AI, or IoT, or much more. And that is the layer that provides value to the end users, right? The individuals, the enterprises, and the governments. So let's see now another differentiator of Hedera, which is the Hedera Governing Council, right? Like, why build on Hedera and what makes Hedera unique? We'll get into the technology, but there's things outside that are worth knowing about. And Hedera has very unique and stable governance, right? In many other governance models, power tends to consolidate. If you think about a model where every voter has, or every token holder has a vote, then power tends to consolidate in the people that are the whales, right? They dictate the direction of the network. Sometimes you have networks that have a core set of developers, like 5 developers making all the decisions behind closed doors. Power consolidates. Whereas here you have a council of global organizations, enterprises, universities, and Web3 organizations doing the governance for the network, operating the nodes, and deciding the direction of the network and building use cases as well. So you can see companies like Google, LG, ServiceNow, BitGo, and so much more. Also big universities. And the key there is that they represent different industries, different geographies, different interests to provide that decentralized set of ideas and that decentralized governance. So that is the Hedera Council. That is something very unique in the Web3 and blockchain world. And another thing that is very relevant to recent events is it's not only about the governance that has to be decentralized and well distributed, but also the infrastructure, the operations of the network. With an AWS outage, you saw that many networks were also hindered by that. And a very unique advantage of Hedera is the distribution of its infrastructure, where you have a very healthy distribution across different cloud providers and also across different on-site or on-prem nodes. And so you can see the distribution here. And if you're more interested in more details, I encourage you to check out details at Hashcan. And also there's a blog article covering this aspect of Hedera, which is very unique and increases the robustness of the network. And then the last thing that I want to mention as well is the community, the ecosystem, and all the integrations and tools that you have available, right? So Hedera has a thriving ecosystem. Here's just a small show of the tools that you have available as you build in terms of wallets, exchanges, bridges, and other tooling. And so stay tuned, throughout the hackathon, because you'll have plenty of opportunity to interact with some of these projects, to integrate many of these tools. And the Discord is a great place, to go and learn more and ask questions about some of these tools. Also the hedera.com official website. All right, so that was governance, that was infrastructure, ecosystem. Now let's talk about technology, because many of you are developers here, and I'm sure you want to get your hands dirty in today's session. So let's see how you can start building with the SDKs, right? Let's go over a conceptual overview so that you can understand the architectures of your typical Web3 application when you're building with those SDKs. So when we look at the Hedera network, in purple, you have that consensus set of nodes that have those services that we talked about for smart contracts, tokenization, and consensus. You also have mirror nodes, and the key there is the separation of concerns, because the consensus node, they're optimized to go really fast, right? Consensus at 10,000 transactions per second. And then all the history and all the archival of those transactions is passed to the mirror nodes. And so how do you interact? How do you submit transactions? That's through the SDK. So for example, you can integrate those very easily on your front end if you're working with JavaScript. And that SDK allows you to submit transactions, as Jake was mentioning, directly to the consensus nodes. You can also get confirmations and receipts and queries from the SDK. But a much more robust way to do that is to use the REST API that gives you access to that history that the mirror nodes contain, right? So that's a very powerful combination of the SDKs and the mirror nodes to build your applications. And then, of course, we support Wallet Connect. There's the Reown App Kit, and the Hedera Wallet Connect is a great addition to that gives you those signing capabilities, right? So whether you're using Hashback or Kabila or any other signing wallet, then that is what enables you to have that signing capability on your browser-based applications. And then, of course, we've mentioned the different types of SDK, so JavaScript, Java, Python, Go, Rust, Swift, C++, and so on. Jake, any additions, anything I missed, or anything you want to highlight for the SDK route? You're on mute, but I think we're all good.
Sorry, yeah, I said I think you've covered it all.
Perfect. All right. Now, let's look at the EVM route. And here is the path where you can use the tools you already know that you're familiar with. If you're coming, from the Web3 world, from the Ethereum world, and you're an existing Web3 or blockchain developer. So whether you like to use Hardhat or Foundry or Third Web, Ethers, VM, you can bring in those tools and use them here on Hedera. And so looking at the stack here, you still have, the same foundation of the Hedera network with the consensus nodes and the mirror nodes, but you have a JSON RPC relay that basically performs the translation of your requests, into requests or contract executions for the consensus node or queries for the mirror node. So that really simplifies the path that you take here. And so you use those libraries, you submit your queries as you would on Ethereum or any other EVM chain, and the JSON RPC relay does the translation so that it simplifies life for you as an EVM developer on Hedera. And then the key to know as well is that you have different JSON RPC providers in the Hedera ecosystem. You have Hashio, which is great for testing and validating use cases. I would say once you're ready to go for production, you have options like Validation Cloud and many others. QuickNode, Linkpool that you can use to power your RPC-based applications. And then, of course, you integrate these tools with your front end. And then whether you want to work with Wallet Connect or Reown or MetaMask, that's also supported here, where you can have that as your signer. And then your users can access the Hedera ecosystem, if you're bringing them from the EVM world. And so the key there, if you're an EVM developer, is that it's very easy to cross-deploy or migrate applications over to Hedera, right? Which enables you to access new markets, new sets of users. Or, if you want to cross-deploy, then that's also new access and new users for your existing applications. All right, so I want to highlight now a very unique thing to Hedera. We've talked about the EVM. If you're familiar with that world, you know what to expect on the EVM path on Hedera. But let's look at those more unique set of services. Let's learn how to work with the Hedera consensus service. And so let's create a little bit of a conceptual map about it, right? I mentioned it's a decentralized messaging bus or a decentralized software utility that orders and notarizes. So you can think of it as consensus as a service. You have publishers and you have subscribers, and then here's the decentralized messaging. And so that is a topic that's done through topics. And so the publishers can submit messages to those topics, and the subscribers basically, get the feed of those messages that are submitted to the topics, and you can have as many topics as you want. So if you want to go through an example, you want to start working with the token service, the consensus service, very easily, in a matter of seconds, head over to hedera.com/playground. And so that'll bring you to this site here, which is a sandbox, a playground, a browser-based environment that allows you to build and try the SDKs and even the EVM on Hedera without local setup, without a whole lot of hustle or hassle. So you can try many things here on your browser. So I'm going to give you first a quick tour of the interface. When you land here on the playground, you can see that you can select an environment, whether it's testnet or previewnet. The previewnet is an early feature network. So if you want to take a look at a new feature that is coming up, the previewnet is the place to do that. But it's very close to the state of the testnet. I would recommend for most testing, just go to testnet. But previewnet is great if you want to check out some of the new features. So you can select the environment there. You can also select the type of key that you're interested in. Typically, ECDSA is the way to go, but Hedera does support two key systems, ED 25519 and ECDSA. So for most things and for a smart contract and EVM compatibility, just go with ECDSA. And then once you create your account, we'll see how you can do that if you try to execute the code once you first get there. But once you create that account, you'll have your credentials for your Hedera accounts right here. So you can see that your ECDSA account has an ID, it has an EVM address, and you have your hex encoded private key as well. And then here are the credentials for your ED 25519 key or account. All right, so that's the quick tour. The other thing that is interesting to show is today the playground enables you to try and work with JavaScript, Java, and Rust. And then we'll be adding Go support in just a matter of weeks or months. So stay tuned for that. And then here to the left, you can select the Hedera service or the Hedera capabilities that you want to work with. So for example, if you are just interested in trying it out, you can submit your first transaction and say, hey, let's create an account. And that quick start is great for that. Let's create an account and transfer some HBAR. So let's say I'm going to transfer. We'll come back to this example. I just want to show you the quick start and how convenient it is, but I want to complete the tour. All right, so you can work with accounts and services or accounts and HBAR, also the consensus service, the token service or HTS, smart contracts, which you can do through the SDKs, but I would recommend going the EVM route for that or checking out the contract builder. And then scheduled transactions, which is also very unique to Hedera, and we're going to go over an example of that. All right, so let's start by creating an account. So Hedera does separate the concept of keys and accounts, which is also very unique and very strongly aligned with the concept of account abstraction. So here, what you can see, also, I forgot to mention the chat assistant, but this is an AI-powered assistant that you're going to see how we can use that in just a second. All right, so here you see how the playground instantiates the Hedera SDK, how it initializes my Hedera client with my credentials that are automatically taken from your account. You can also see my HBAR balance for testing. And then here we just instantiate the client for the testnet with these credentials for the operator. So let's say I just want to create a new account. So by entering or clicking on that element, you can see the SDK class that is used. And then once you specify the properties that you want for that new account, you can execute that. You get a receipt with the client. And then, the rest of it is just confirmations and information that you can use to display. So I'm going to go ahead and create this new account. And here you see that we just submitted our first transaction in literally a matter of seconds with just a couple of clicks. So that went through successfully. Here I can see my account credentials. Here's my account identifier or ID, the EVM address that corresponds to that account, and then my private public key pair. You would probably save that if you want to reuse that account. And then if we go to Hashcan, which is the network explorer in the Hedera ecosystem, you can see the properties of that transaction. Here's the account ID. You can see also the HBAR transfers related to that account. You saw that I funded that account with 10 HBAR for the initial balance. And if we go to see the properties of that account, you can see that balance that I provided, the public key for that account, the assets, the operations for that account, and so much more. All right. The other thing I want to mention is if you're not sure about some type of functionality, you also have these question marks that point you to the documentation to learn how to use a type of transaction in the playground. All right. So that is just a quick example there on one of the most basic type of transactions. Let's make things more interesting, and let's start working with the consensus service. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a topic that's done with the topic create transaction. And what you'll notice is that these things are automatically added to your imports or to your requirements. So we'll use topic create transaction. In this case, we're just instantiating a public topic where anyone can submit. If you want to protect your topic, you can specify a key. So let's see what the method is. I think it's set submit key or something. Yep. So if we set this submit key, then you give permissions to only that key holder or those key holders, because you can have key lists and key thresholds on Hedera. To those would be the people authorized to submit transactions to this topic or submit messages. In this case, let's leave it public. We'll execute that with my client. We'll get a receipt. We'll get the status. We'll get the transaction ID and some additional information that I'm just going to output to the console. After that, I'm just going to submit a message. And so I select that submit message, and you can see the new class that is brought in here. We select the topic that we instantiated above, and let's say, Hello Future Hackathon. All right, so that will be our message. You can execute, get the receipt. We'll go through the same flow again. And one thing that I do want to mention again is we saw how topics can have keys for authorized submission of messages. Topics can also generate revenue. So if you attach, like a revenue or like a fee schedule to your topic, then you could have a public topic that is instantiated, and you can benefit from the activity that happens in that topic to generate some revenue. And so, that also becomes very relevant when you start overlapping with AI applications. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and submit. So we'll create our topic, submit a message to that topic. And there we go. So if we look at either one of these transactions, this is the transaction that created the topic. We can see the cost breakdown or the fee breakdown. I'm going to go to my topic ID here, and I can see the messages submitted to that topic. Now, I do want to bring AI or the AI assistant into the mix here. So if I bring back the chat assistant, I want to show you how you can submit multiple messages. And so let's say create a for loop to submit 10 messages to my topic. And each message has a counter. So it should look like Hello Future Hackathon, and then we'll do counter. So let's see what the assistant can do for us here. All right, so it's given us the for loop. Let's see, I just want to make sure I trust it here. So we got the loop, we got the message. Let's just try it out. I think I got a better response last night, but let's give it a try.
You're saying this isn't the first time you've done it?
Well, I was just trying it out just to make sure, how hallucination-proof AI can be. That's the other disclaimer. This is all powered by AI, so keep in mind the risk of hallucinations. But we're obviously working to make it as good as it can be. So let's take a look. Message. We'll change this. I don't like this part. We'll just work with a string literal. And then let's go with I. So new topic here, topic ID. Let's go with topic ID. So you can see the autocomplete. We'll set the message there. We'll execute it with the client. I guess I did forget this here. So constant. So it's not liking that. Values.
I think it's only, yeah, I think it's just because it's not been used. I think, I reckon when you get the receipt, I think it'll be fine.
You might like it, right? Yep. Let's see.
Well, no, there's that code below that's going to fail, I think. Is that declared now, that TX, or did you?
Which one? Topic. So let's see. All right, troubleshooting here. Let's ask it again and see. Oh, you know what happened? Let's add the code. So here's what I forgot to do. This is why the response was not ideal. Okay, so let's submit the message. Let's take this prompt again. And I forgot to add the code. So it didn't give me a great response because I forgot to add the code to the context. And so you have these little buttons to add your code or your output to the context of the model. And so if the model has the context of the code, it will give a much better response. So let's try this one more time. And we should get a response that basically tells us where to insert the code that it's suggesting if, once you've done all your checks and you're happy with the code that is given you. So here's what I mean. So now we got the for loop, we got the message. Here you see the format that I like with the string literals. And then it's going through the entire flow of the execution, getting the receipt, the status, and all the information. So I'm gonna take this all code, or I'm just gonna add this here in line 56. All right, so I'm gonna get rid of the all code, which is right down here. And we'll go with the code that we have with the for loop that AI gave us. So much better when you have the context added to your AI assistant. So let's give that a try.
Now, one thing to note here is that when you get your response, it basically it runs everything on the server side first. So if you were to run this locally, you would see one message come up sort of in series, but you saw just now all 10 messages came onto your screen at the same time. So it's just something to note, especially when you're doing longer transactions. It might seem a bit slow, but it's actually executing everything on the server before then printing it on your client.
The other thing worth noting is in the architecture that, or the little pattern that the AI gave us, we're receiving the confirmation before submitting the next transaction. And so one thing worth noting is that, especially when you're working with the consensus service, you can fire transactions and submit them without having to wait for the confirmation, which would have made the process a lot faster. But then, you sort of, you might compromise the linearity of the messages that you're submitting because, one message may, for example, message 2 may come into consensus after message 3, if that's important to you. So a few things worth noting about the consensus service that you can learn about trying it in the playground, working with the assistant, and also checking out documentation, right? Remember, AI is great, but also be sure to check out the documentation as you go through these Hedera capabilities. All right, so I know we're about at the halfway point. I had another example that I wanted to show, so I'm going to do that very quickly, and that is related to scheduled transactions, which is also very unique to Hedera. So a scheduled transaction is a transaction that only executes once all the signatures and all the authorizations for that transaction have been received. Okay, so you can say I have this intent or I want to create this transaction. and then you can have it there, I think, for about 62 days or something like that. And then once those signatures that are required to complete that transaction come in, then that will automatically execute. And that's all done with JavaScript, or the SDKs, whether it's Java or any other. So let's go ahead and let's create a new account. Let's also create a scheduled transaction. And so that's done with this scheduled create transaction class from the SDK. The transaction that we're going to schedule is a transfer. Now I'm going to flip the picture here. I want this account ID, which will have 10 HBAR when it's created, right? Because I'm giving it that balance from my account. I want that account to give me back 5 HBAR. So we'll revert the signs here. So this is how you do an HBAR transfer on Hedera. So that account will give me 5 HBAR. The receiver will be my account, and that will be executed with the client. Now, I can execute this, and it'll instantiate the schedule, but the inner transaction won't execute because this signer or this account hasn't signed that yet. So we can take a look at that. If we just create the schedule, we'll look at it on Hashcam. And so here we have the create account, schedule transaction. So let's take a look at the scheduled transaction. Here you can see the details of the schedule to create, the cost breakdown, and here's the schedule ID. The schedule ID, is the actual entity, and it tells you it's not executed yet. All right, so coming back to the portal, let's add this signature that is required. So you do that with the sign a scheduled transaction. And you can see that right here. Here's the schedule ID, freeze with the client. However, we want to sign this with the account private key, which is that, the key of the account that needs to authorize this transfer. And so that variable was instantiated right before we created the account. So you can see that right there, that new account is authorizing the transaction. You can see the execution details, the receipt, and more information. And so let's go ahead and run that flow once more. There we go. So we did the same process, created the account, created the scheduled transaction, but now we submitted the signature, or we signed that schedule, and we should see here that this is the type of transaction. If we go to the schedule ID, it shows that crypto transfer was executed. So that's a very basic example. And this also integrates with smart contracts. So that's even more programmability and more flexibility to the type of scheduled transactions you can perform on Hedera.
I guess just to share a bit of like another sort of approach that you can go around the scheduled transactions, Ed. If you go back to the create scheduled transaction, you go back to that class and then add the method. If you add the method dot wait for expiry, wait for expiry, and then by default it's set to false. So by default, you have the behavior which Ed just explained, in that the schedule, as soon as it has all of the signatures, it will submit it. However, let's also do set dot set. I think if you do dots set, why is that coming up as?
I think might be the parser that gives you, the types. We'll have to check the version there that it's comparing to, but I think that's okay. I think it is a true method.
Yeah, because you can also do set the actual time frame up to 2 months in the future. So like I can't remember exactly. It's not showing up now because there's the error. But if we have a look at the docs, which is you can do, you go to the question mark. We've got the set expiration time, which is a timestamp. So you can set the expiration time to 1 month in the future, and then you can say set wait for expiry. Yeah. So even if you have all of the relevant signatures, what it will do is it will still wait and to execute it in 1 month. And that scheduled transaction, it can be a smart contract call. You can say, you can do a smart contract call which executes in 1 month in the future, for example.
Yeah. And the interesting thing here in the documentation is you can see the types that are expected for each one of these inputs. And so, yeah, in this case, Boolean, timestamp, and so on. And then you also have the autocomplete to help you out with the different type of methods that you would implement. All right, so I know we're moving pretty fast or time is going by pretty fast. I also want to mention to you the contract builder. So the playground is fantastic for everything related to the SDKs for that exploration. Whether you're new to Hedera or you're an experienced dev and you want to try a very good idea quickly, that's the playground. You also have the contract builder. I'm also realizing I want to mention the faucet to you, right? Because this is great for testing. The dashboard gives you 1,000 HBAR every 24 hours. So you can always come here, refill your HBAR. You'll get up to 1,000 HBAR for a 24-hour period. And then the faucet allows you to give up to 100 testnet HBAR every 24 hours to any account that you enter here. So also be sure to check that out if you need HBAR for your testing. All right, let's go to the contract builder here. And what I want to show is a very quick example of how you can create an ERC20 token. As Jake mentioned, you also have the hybrid approach where that token service that is native to Hedera, you can access that through the EVM. And so if you want the benefit of high scalability, high throughput, fast finality with those native entities, explore that. But if you're just trying to implement, an ERC or that's the requirement for your application, then those ERC standards can certainly function on Hedera. All right, so let's call my token our Hello Future token. Let's give it a symbol of HFT. We'll pre-mint 1,000 tokens. Yes, we'll make it mintable, burnable, possible. So the cool thing about the contract builder is it gives you these capabilities and these customizations from the left pane so that you can easily figure out, how to add this functionality, what dependencies give you the different capabilities, and so on. We won't do voting. We'll control access by making it ownable. But for example, you could assign roles to the different functionality of your smart contract. You can also work with managed. And then we'll just go with ownable just to allow the owner of this token to perform some of these functions. So here you can enter your email. And then we're going to compile this smart contract. And there it is. So here, if you want to check out the ABI, the bytecode of your contract, that's fantastic. Let's take a quick look at the code that we just added, right? So we have a constructor, so we do have to pass the initial owner, right, for that pre-mint, and also the recipient. Sorry, for the pre-mint is the recipient and the initial owner. And so that's going to pass that to this ownable function or attribute. And then here you have the additional functions that are only accessible to the owner, like minting, pausing, and unpausing the token, right? And updating. So I'm just going to work with my account. I'm going to make my account the initial owner and also the recipient for that pre-mint. I can set a gas limit, also auto-estimate it, or do the automatic estimation for that deployment. And I want this contract to be verified upon deployment. So let's go ahead. And so it's deploying, verifying, and once that's complete, you'll see all the information. Let's clean up a few tabs here. You should see all the information about your contract, like its EVM address, its contract ID. If I were to click on that, it brings me back to Hashcan and shows me some of the properties for that smart contract, including the ABI. From Hashcan, you can also execute some of these functions if you want to test that contract that has been verified. Here's the source, the bytecode, and so much more that you can see about this contract. And just for fun, let's run a quick function and then we'll pass it over to Jake to go over AI. But let's transfer some of those tokens from my account to the contract address, right? Let's give some balance to this contract. And so I'll just grab the EVM address for the contract, and I'm just going to transfer it 100 of my Hello Future tokens. So there we go. Here we see the output. You see that it's true. And then if we wanted to check that, we can come here, check the balance of, we'll check the address of the contract, we'll call it. And then here you see the 100 tokens that we just transferred, ERC tokens that we just transferred to the contract. So yeah, this is a fantastic way to get familiar with those ERC standards if you're not familiar with them, or if you want to quickly, form a template or a skeleton of a contract and test it, you have everything you need here from the Hedera portal in the contract builder. All right, one thing that I forgot to mention is the sharing. So for instance, once you're done, you can easily grab your code and you have a URL that basically adds your source code, whether it's EVM based or SDK based, and the other person that receives it can easily recreate or reproduce what you have done in your browser instance. All right, so at this point, let's pass it over to Jake. Jake, I know you have, I think we can go over, but yeah, let's take it away and let's go over AI.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll try to be concise because it's getting pretty late where I'm at. Okay, so there we go. You can see my screen. So really what I'm going to cover, I'm going to do a deep dive into the Hedera agent kit, the Hedera AI agent kit, how you can sort of play with it and get it tested and up and running. But I also want to talk about some of the wider trends and initiatives in the AI space. So let's just start off with a quick snapshot of the AI agent space on blockchain and Hedera in general, and it's definitely starting to pick up a lot of traction. We've got quite a lot of big players outside of just the typical Web3 ecosystem who are starting to get involved because they really understand that actually when it comes to this agentic future where every one of us is going to have 1,000 agents working for us, you do need to have a layer of trust and integrity. And obviously blockchain provides a really strong solution to that. So with that being said, I wanted to quickly mention ERC 8004. ERC 8004 is a specification that's been created by people in the Ethereum ecosystem alongside some people from Google as well and Coinbase. And as you can see, we've got some Hedera deployments on testnet alongside the traditional EVM chains. Really what ERC 8004 is, it's a protocol for creating trustless agents, but really it's a set of smart contracts that allow you to give an agent identity, and you can actually validate whether you want to interact with that agent because it will have its own reputation and other meaningful metrics that you can use or an application can use to tell you whether this agent is good at a particular task. So I wanted to discuss that, and we're going to obviously go into much more detail in this in a dedicated AI session, along with any resources. But ERC 8004 is quite a hot topic at the moment, as is X402. So if you think of ERC as being the ERC 8004 as being the trust layer for AI agents, X402 is looking and shaping up to be the payment layer of AI agents. So you'll go, okay, I can actually, I'll find an agent, I trust it because I can see its reputation on ERC 8004. But when it comes to actually paying that agent for some value exchange, you might want to think about using X402. We have our own X402 implementation. Again, we'll do a deep dive in this on the agent session. But it's pretty cool. It's been very interesting to see sort of these things develop. With all that said, let's go back to sort of the main piece of the puzzle, which is literally the AI agent. And how can you build AI agents on Hedera? Well, the best way to do it is to head over to the Hedera Agent Kit JS NPM library. So we've got it all in GitHub. It's all open source. You can install it just by doing npm install Hedera Agent Kit alongside any framework of your choice, any AI agent framework of your choice. We provide support for LangChain, the Vercel AI SDK. You can use our agent kit to create MCP servers. You can use ELIZA OS, which is very powerful for creating AI agents, and I think a few others. No, that's it at the moment. So all of the core AI agent tools, frameworks, you can use them, and you can use our agent kit alongside that to build AI agents that interact with Hedera. But an even quicker way to get started isn't just by installing it, it's by going straight over to your terminal and doing npm create Hedera-agent at latest. And what this does, again, I'm going to you sort of this is a call to action for those of you who are looking to build AI agents on Hedera. What this does is it gives you a really nice CLI interface to quickly spin up a Next.js application that leverages the agent kit. So you put in your project name. You can then select whether you want to do an autonomous AI agent or a human in the loop AI agent. So the difference between these two, an autonomous AI agent, as it sort of as it may be obvious, an autonomous AI agent executes transactions without needing to request a human's approval. You give the AI agent its own private key and it just does stuff. Human on the loop, on the other hand, will use Wallet Connect, which is one of the tools that Ed mentioned at the beginning of the session. It will use Wallet Connect to actually create the transaction and send it over to you as the user to sign and submit it. So as the human, you get that final approval of executing a transaction on an agent's behalf. You can select either one. We've got support for both of them. If you do go down the autonomous route, then you obviously need to pass in your private key and your account ID. You can get that from the Hedera portal. I know Ed just mentioned it, but I'm going to give it another sort of call out. Portal.hedera.com. It's important for the demo that you use this ECDSA one. We've just configured it only for ECDSA keys in this demo. However, you can, of course, use it with ED25519. It's a very small change. I'm not going to go through all of these steps. I've already spun it up myself. So I think at the moment it's running on the autonomous mode. And if we head over to that local host application, give the page a quick refresh, we'll see the Next.js application that gets spun up. And what's nice about this is by using this create React app or create Next.js app, you don't actually need to worry about doing all of the piping yourself. You can just get straight to it. So here we've got the autonomous mode. I can go, hey, create me a token on Hedera. Well, I don't even say on Hedera, it's sort of obvious. So I can say, hey, create me a token. Now, we'd expect the AI agent to come back and say, we need a bit more information here because we don't have everything that's needed to create a token. As you can see, we've got some suggestions over here. So let's go, we'll just call it, Hashgraph Hustlers. Hashgraph Hustlers, if you don't know about it, is the live stream that I do a couple times a month where we build lots of cool stuff. We vibe code lots of stuff live and we have some amazing guests. So if you see a Hashgraph Hustlers, definitely come and check it out. With symbol HH and initial supply 1,000. Now, there's a few other things that we can set over here. We could, for example, make it, give it a supply key so that you can then sort of mint it. You can increase the supply afterwards, but we'll keep it really simple for now. So it's going to create this token. It remembers the context. Part of it's done so that actually it has memory. So it knows that, okay, well, I've said create a token before. So it goes, okay, well, I still want to create a token. And we can check out that transaction ID. This is using the native approach. So this is using the JavaScript SDK. We're also creating a Python SDK for AI agents. We're doing a Python AI agent kit. But as you can see, we've got this fungible token, 10,000 supply. Brilliant.
Jake, I think this is a good time to revisit that point of the hybrid architecture, because say if you're working with agents to create your HTS tokens and the SDK or the agent uses that native approach, it doesn't mean you cannot use the EVM, right? Because you can interact with those Hedera native tokens through smart contracts as if they were ERC tokens. So,
exactly.
Right, like if you want to use the balance of method of an ERC20 on a fungible native Hedera token, you can do that, right? And so yes, the Hedera agent relies on the native approach, but then if you have smart contracts that you had programmed for ERC interactions, then you can easily reuse that with the native approach.
Exactly. So, and actually we can even interact with the EVM through our AI agent. So we can actually say, now create me an ERC20 with the same details.
Nice.
So let's do that. This should now actually deploy an ERC20 smart contract. So it's another token. They're both tokens, but they're different types of tokens. And what I'll do is, because I get this question quite a lot, and it's an amazing question, which is, when would I use the SDK versus when would I use the when would I use the SDK and the native services versus when would I use the EVM? And the way that I usually answer that is there's a few different variables that come into play. So the first one, which I always point out, is, what are you most comfortable with? Are you new to Web3? You've never done Solidity. You don't know anything about gas, all of that stuff. But boy, can you code in JavaScript. If that's the case, just use the SDK. You'll feel right at home. You don't really need to learn new concepts. A lot of the complexity is actually abstracted away from you. And that, in that case, yeah, definitely use the SDK in your mother tongue, in your native language. On the flip side, if you are an expert on the EVM, then just go straight to Solidity. You don't need to worry at all about the native services. You can just go use your hard hat, use your Forge, your Foundry, take your existing contracts, and don't worry about any of this native stuff. It's probably going to be a bit that's going to be a learning curve, because you have to rewire your brain. So that's sort of the initial filter that I often recommend. The other thing is do you want to have lots of programmability, lots of customized code, and the ability to create a decentralized exchange, for example? In that case, yeah, you're probably going to have to go for Solidity. And then, but on the flip side, do you need to have really high throughput? If you need to have really, really high throughput, you need to have 10,000 plus TPS, then you might want to go for the SDK. So those are a few different sort of, those are my steps when it comes to sort of what design choice should I pick. And if you're feeling confident, you want to balance both customizability, flexibility, programmability with high throughput, that's when you do the hybrid approach.
And another thing to consider beyond that as well is, what do you want to do with these tokens in the ecosystem? Say if you're building an actual project, or whatever you're building, the hackathon, you want to bring it into production or integrate it with the ecosystem. And so here I want to give a huge shout out to the wallets, because the wallets, they'll support both, right? The native entities, and then I know the wallets also support ERC tokens. And so that's got you covered, right? Like you'll be able to reach users through those Hedera wallets. And then now when it relates to DeFi, most of the DeFi, if not all of the DeFi ecosystem on Hedera, is primarily built on the native approach. So keep that in mind, right? If you're actually looking for a path of integrating with the DeFi ecosystem, maybe the native approach is a good path. If you just need to give access to your users through the Hedera wallet or other wallets, then the ERC path can work pretty well. So just laying out the different considerations from the requirements, technology, familiarity, and also to the ecosystem level.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So what I want to quickly do now is I just want to showcase the autonomous mode as well. And in the case of this demo, the human mode, human in the loop mode. In the case of this demo, you just want to go to the environment variables and just pass in human for the agent mode. And then also make sure you've got a wallet connects project ID. Now, let's go back. So I'm going to save that and then run it again. And now if I refresh the page, it should pop up with a connect wallet button. So it's just loading the web app. And now you can see it says connect wallet. So I can actually connect, pops up with the wallet connect module. I'm going to use Hashback in this case. Now, this is a bit of an edge case because I've got two browsers and my Hashback is part of my Brave browser. So I'm actually going to copy this link, and then if I go over to my Hashback, I can paste it in. This isn't the typical way. If you're not strange like me and you just have one browser, if I was using my Brave browser to open it, it would pop up with my wallet immediately. Or if I had my wallet on this Chrome browser, again, it would pop up immediately, but I don't. So I've done it a bit of a manual way, but as you can see, it's still paired. And what this means is now I can go, okay, create me a topic with memo hello world. So this is now going to identify which tool to use, which agentic tool to use. Transaction requires a signature. If I go over to my wallet now, we can see that the wallet has a signature waiting for me. Create topic, human in the loop. I'm going to approve it. And now it's executing. We can see that the transaction IDs come over here. So we can see that, and we can see that, voila, we have a new topic ID. We can then do something like submit a message to that topic. And yeah. Before I wrap up, there's another thing which I want to show, and that's what I've demonstrated today is all part of the core plugins. So if you have a quick look at the actual source code, everything which I've just showcased is one of the core plugins. So if we go over to our library and we see our agent factory, I think. We can see that we're creating an agent which has, it loads every single one of the plugins. You can sort of pick and choose particular plugins from our agent kit, like the core token plugin or the core consensus plugin, etc., etc. You can sort of select specific plugins that do particular services that we've described, or you can build your own one. And actually, that's where this gets really powerful, because you can create your own plugin. We've got examples of how to do that in the Hedera agent kit. You can see some of the documentation, creating plugins and contributing. We've got a dedicated document on how you can create your own plugin. It's really easy, and it's very powerful, because what happens is you create a plugin once, and then you can actually use it in every single one of these AI agent frameworks. So you create a plugin with 20 lines of code, and as you as a developer or other developers are able to actually immediately use it in the Vercel AI SDK, Eliza OS, LangChain, or as an MCP server. So it's quite cool. We've got lots of community plugins. So for example, the meme job plugin, this is Hedera's pump.fun. They've got their own plugin, and you'll sort of create the Hedera AI toolkit. Amazing. And you pass in the plugin over here. You can select which mode you want. Obviously, we did that in the configuration file, but this is the way that you do it, sort of down in the code. And you pass in that meme job plugin, and that will then give you access to create meme coins, buy meme coins, sell meme coins, all via an AI agent. We've got a Bonzo plugin for borrowing and lending. And importantly, if you have your own smart contract, if you've got your own custom smart contract, let's say you've got a Vault, you can create your own plugin which interacts with that. So out of the box, it'll be difficult to do it, but in absolutely in trivial amounts of code, you can create your own custom plugin which interacts with your own custom contracts. We're seeing a lot of this stuff in hackathons at the moment. There's some really amazing DeFi AI agents which have been submitted in previous hackathons. But yeah, just wanted to sort of give a quick showcase on the plugins and a call to action. If you're more interested in this AI agent stuff, you want to look into that ERC 8004, which I mentioned, X402, building your own plugins. Definitely join in on our AI agent workshop. That will be live, and we'll be spending the whole hour focused on this.
I love this point about the plugins, and I'm with you that that's where you truly see things get interesting, because you open the doors for those autonomous agents or even human in the loop agents to perform actions beyond the core services, right? Start interacting with parts of the ecosystem, like you showed, the meme coins, maybe swapping, maybe borrowing, lending, and so much more. So that really opens doors of possibilities. And so did I hear you right? Like if I develop my own plugin as part of the hackathon, that's something that would get points?
It will definitely get points. It's like the like my point earlier on using the hybrid approach, in that it demonstrates you're really engaging with the latest Hedera technologies, and you're sort of pushing the edge. You're going above and beyond. You're not just doing the basic stuff. You're really going, okay, this is the AgentKit SDK. This is how I can integrate it with my application. I mean, if you do a plugin which also interacts with the hybrid service, poof, that's not a bad approach.
Absolutely. All right. So I was trying to wrap us up. Anything you want to cover, Jake, before we wrap up the session?
No, I think that's everything. I mean, join the Discord. Definitely get in the Discord. We've just done a revamp on the Discord, which is. There we go. Yeah. So yeah, we've just done a There we go. Ed gets the full stage because he's way more attractive. We've just done a revamp of the Discord. It's much more simple. So get in there, give us your feedback. If you think there's things we can do to improve the actual layout of the Discord, give us feedback. But most importantly, get in there, start asking questions, and we've got a lot of resources who really want to help you.
Absolutely. I think Discord is a great place to interact with the community, to get support, to ask questions, and be involved with everything that is happening in the ecosystem. So I do want to address very quickly something that is inspirational before we close, right? Because why build on the hackathons, and who's actually building on Hedera? Like, what are some of the use cases that we see in the ecosystem? And so I want to highlight a few. So in the area of social media and consumer engagement, one of the major use cases has been karate combat, that has taken Web3 and combat sports by storm. And so this is something that is built on Hedera, and they're using that token service to create this karate token that drives fan engagement and also allows governance, league governance, where consumers or participants can vote on things that relate to the league, right? Like location and so much more. So here you can see some of the quotes that these projects are also giving. When it comes to AI and the consensus service and provenance for AI data integrity, it's very interesting to see what Equity Lab, NVIDIA, and Intel have been doing with verifiable compute to provide that tamper-proof, certificates of authority that verify AI training, AI inference, and more. And then moving on, one of my favorites is Neuron in the world of IoT and also data integrity. And they're using that consensus service for monitoring the activity of drones and providing those tamper-proof records of critical communications and interactions between the sensors and the drones, right? Very important when a dispute arises to have that truth or that log that is backed by cryptography and math, as opposed to opinions or he said versus others said. And then also I want to highlight this use case by Hyundai and Kia to monitor CO2 emissions, right? And so they're monitoring those emissions in their supply chain. And I believe they're using the Guardian, which is one of those accelerators and sustainability ecosystem tools that is critical for issuing, managing, deprecating, the life cycle or carbon assets throughout their entire life cycle. And so there's much more, in the Web3 world in different verticals like finance and payments and more. But I just want to give you that quick overview of some of the people that have built very compelling use cases on Hedera. So with that, I want to bring us to a close, and I'll give it over to Charlene in case there are any last minute guidance, thoughts, and recommendations.
Okay, thanks for that, Ed. What an insightful sharing, right? So I've been listening and taking notes myself. It's really useful, really. So especially for those who are still getting onboarded to Hedera or looking for a refresher. Now let's go through some questions we've received. But before that, I've noticed that there were people who were looking for teams. That's what I can see from our YouTube comments. So to answer, please scan to the QR code that you're seeing on your screen right now, register to the hackathon, and you'll be able to join the Discord community. On Discord, please go to Ascension. Under Ascension, there is a channel there for team formation where you'll be able to find your team. And that is where you can also form your team. Yeah. So I'll be tackling 3 questions that we received. One of it is from Instagram, so I won't be able to flash it on the screen. So I'm going to read it out. This is from K. Alonso. He said, "Does that mean using the SDKs compared to the traditional smart contract is more fast?"
I can take a stab. Does that mean the SDKs compared to traditional smart contracts is faster? Um, t- Typically, yes. And the reason, well, I mean, I'm trying to interpret fast, right? Like what part of the text up, but maybe I'm overthinking the question. I would say it's more scalable. When you use the SDK, it's more scalable because you're accessing the nodes, the consensus nodes directly, and then you're not going through the EVM execution path. Now, our EVM is very performant, right? It has a gas limit overall of 15 million gas per second, and that's going to increase even more in the next month or two. But you have that gas limitation. Whereas when you go through the SDKs, for example, in a consensus, using the consensus service and doing those consensus transactions, you get the scalability of the network where you can go up to 10,000 transactions per second. If you're doing token transfers, 10,000 transactions per second. And then, I mean, in terms of fast, of like how fast my transaction is processed or received, very small difference, I would say. But with the EVM path, you do have to go through the JSON RPC relay, which is another component in the execution. But I would say that fast, of like how fast is my transaction, reaching the node, it's probably not super significant. I think it's more about the performance and the scalability considerations.
Got it. Thanks so much for that. And okay, now I'll move to the second question. This is from DFB. Okay, any insight on HIP 1249? Thanks, team.
Let
So
me,
I believe that's the. Oh, go ahead, Jake. Oh,
no,
smart
I was
contract.
just going to pull it up. I was just going to precise smart contract throttling.
Yeah, so that's what I was mentioning in my previous response, where today the smart contract throttling, so the capacity happens, uh, and it's gas based. It's 15 million gas per second, right? So if you have two contract operations, each one at 7.5 million each in 1 second, that consumes the capacity of the network. And with this HIP, that capacity is going from gas based to operations based. And so it will increase the ceiling of smart contract transaction operations that can be processed in a given time frame or second. If you want more details, we can share the link here, and would recommend giving it a good read. And so I'll put it here so that we can add it in the screen.
All right. Thank you for that, Ed. I'll move on to the next question. Most people need to know who by name uses Hedera, how they use it, what the benefits of using it versus alternatives are, and what the future holds to expand user base.
I think that relates to the my closing set of slides, right? In terms of use cases, the who, we have many projects, also many council members that you saw doing that governance. They're building use cases. Each one of them has their own timeline for the use cases that they want to announce. I think that has been very public has been Australia Payment Plus, or AP Plus, doing very interesting things like Project Acacia, which is a Jake, how would you describe it? Is it a stable coin for the central bank, effectively?
Yeah, so Project Acacia, that was it's the RBA, the Reserve Bank of Australia, did a 1-year sandbox with a select few projects in Australia. Hedera was one of those selected. And yeah, I know that the AP Plus use case has 3 sub use cases, and also because the Hedera technology was so good, other people in that Project Acacia ended up migrating their projects over to Hedera. But the main ones are sort of settlement in between large banks. I can't remember exactly what it's called in terms of the actual the actual business word for it. Like it's not remit. It's like internal remittances. The actual technical terminology has slipped my mind. But basically, moving big amounts of money in internal banks. So there was that use case. There was like a DVP use case, delivery versus payment for tokenized assets, and then a fiat to stablecoin on ramp, where with the banks you can deposit an Aussie dollar and you can get one Aussie dollar stablecoin in return. So I think those were the three. You can definitely, this is all public information. You can definitely find out all of this online. And to a similar note, we've just had a really awesome announcement with the Bank of England. We're the only layer one, I think we're the only public layer one who's been invited to participate in their activity, which is similar to what Australia RBA did. Similar thing to Project Acacia. We're also part of that. That you can find online. Those are just a few, but there's pretty cool. Just bloody got an ETF yesterday.
Yeah,
So,
exactly right. The ETF announcement, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And then also, while we're in that vertical of payments and remittances, a while back, Shinhan Bank and Standard Bank also did that proof of concept and evaluation to transfer, to do remittances and that settlement in a matter of minutes or seconds, as opposed to the 24 hours plus that it takes to do settlement when you're sending payments cross borders. And that's just payments and banking and in the financial sector. There's much more that is happening in the data integrity supply chain, especially also in the ESG vertical. So I would say stay tuned throughout the hackathon. We'll be highlighting those use cases maybe in the AMAs, maybe as part of the workshops that we do. So if you want to see more of those, let us know directly as well. Join the Discord and ask us a question, and we'll send you the right resource for you to study up on the use cases.
Yeah, but there's there's definitely a lot. There's definitely a lot going on. There's so much going on that sort of someone will tell you a use case. Oh, I totally forgot about that. But obviously on the enterprise side, it's only really been in the last few months where people can actually go from just an internal proof of concept to something deployed, and that's because of regulation. I mean, it's just an enterprise is never going to touch stable coins if there's no guidelines around what is a stable coin. It's just crazy business. Whereas now in the US, we've got the Genius Act, people can actually do it. So we'll see a lot more stuff coming out in the year ahead. A lot of exciting stuff.
Wonderful. Thanks for that sharing, guys. Okay, I'll move on to the fourth question. Are there any debugging or monitoring tools you recommend when developing on Hedera?
I'll start with the SDK path, and Jake, I'll let you cover the EVM path if you want to go with it. Like mentioning Hashcan and other things, and verification. But from the SDK path, I mean, the JavaScript debugger, like it's very powerful. So like whether you're using a code editor or a full IDE, those debugging tools you could use to go through your code in detail. But then if you want to debug exactly the behaviors that you're seeing on chain, then the most powerful combination is going to be your debugging tool plus Hashcan, right? Because Hashcan allows you to see what's happening and visualize very easily. And then, of course, the debugging tools will help you see things programmatically. Maybe another thing worth mentioning might be the mirror node REST API that we mentioned early on, because that's another, I mean, Hashcan relies on that, but if you want to do your own queries and understand specific transactions or account activity that is happening, the mirror node REST API could be another powerful tool to incorporate in your debugging. Jake, I'll let you cover EVM debugging.
Yeah, so on the EVM side, there's a few things that you can do to have a nice developer experience, and to be honest, one of them is initially testing just by using the hard hat network, or the local hard hat network, or the local Foundry network, depending on which EVM toolkit you want to use. The reason being is it's much quicker, so it basically spins up like a local emulator of the EVM on your computer, and it just makes those feedback cycles so much quicker. So rather than having to deploy a contract and it takes 3 to 5 seconds, and then you do a contract execution, it takes 3 to 5 seconds. I mean, if you're doing it on like Sapolio, you're going to be waiting minutes. On Hedera, you're waiting seconds, but those seconds still add up. And to me, that there's not much worse than just looking at a test script and having to wait there for 1 minute because there's 50 functions being executed. So a first step could be to just use something like the hard hat or the Foundry emulators. It's much quicker. Or you can actually run your own Hedera node. You can run it locally, which is also much quicker, and spin up your own JSON RPC relay. That's definitely something you can do. Once you get beyond that sort of local phase, you'll definitely want to start deploying and verifying your smart contracts. That's really important, because once you verify it on HashScan, you can actually start looking at the events. You can actually look at everything decoded. Whereas if you don't verify the contract, you'll see the contract events, and it'll just be a bunch of hex. It'll be 0x123ABC974, which, unless you're a super genius, is obviously meaningless. So by verifying it, you're then letting HashScan know, how do I actually interpret this hex code? How do I actually interpret this byte code? And in turn, you can actually have a better understanding as to what's happening or what's not happening. So those would be my two key tips, as well as reach out to us and share us your error messages as well. That's another one. You can use the forum feature on Discord, and we can be there to help you out.
That's right. Okay, thank you for that, Jake. So please don't forget to join our Discord community. There's a lot there. So if you're trying to debug, if you're trying to fix some issues that you have faced, please join Discord. There will be people who's gonna help you. Perhaps it's Hedera team. So next, the last question we have is, how do I start as a newbie?
Love this question. I think showing up here, being here today is a great first step. The fact that you're in this workshop and hopefully participating in the hackathon shows that you have the willingness to get your hands dirty, to come and learn and spend the time to improve your skills and build something compelling. And so follow first go to Discord. Right there, you're going to see an amazing community, also a very good set of resources that our team has put together to help you find things very easily. And then I'm going to reiterate some of the things that we covered today, right? Check out the documentation. I think there has been significant investment recently to improve, the discoverability of the key information that you want to find, the most helpful tutorials. So go to documentation always. And then check out that Hedera portal or playground. So if you just go hedera.com/playground, then you can start, poking around, getting an understanding of what it's like to work on Hedera, to work with the SDKs, and even with the contract builder if you're interested in exploring that EVM path. So just to keep it digestible and easy to remember, go to Discord, check out the documentation, and check out the Hedera portal. I think from there, you can branch out to other things that might be more specialized. And if you're in Discord, we'll help you find the right information, right? And if you're in the documentation and the portal, it'll also help you find the right resource for whatever problem you're trying to tackle.
Yeah, probably a fourth one to add to the mix, not to overdo it, and definitely go for the three which Ed mentioned primarily. But if you're already quite familiar with the docs, another resource which is probably underused, not just in Hedera but across every single coding ecosystem, is GitHub. Go to, for example, the Hedera-Devs organization, and really that's where you get the latest and the best code snippets and informations, because obviously there's a bit of lag from when it goes in from code over to documentation, and that this isn't just a tip for Hedera, this is a tip for everything. Often you find that the nuggets of gold in the GitHub organizations, looking at the code, looking at the readmes there. So in our case, Hedera-Devs, I think we'll be able to get it up on the screen. But that's an amazing resource.
Wonderful. Thank you for that sharing. Indeed, that will be very, very useful for our participants. Okay, and I guess that is it for this session. And we are looking forward to have you all during the opening ceremony. So once again, this is Hedera Hello Future Ascension, and we will officially kick off on the 3rd of November, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Once again, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, okay? And all you need to do is to simply join Discord channel so you're aware of the important announcements, such as the workshops, AMAs, milestones, and more. Also, if you haven't yet, I encourage you to join the hackathon and register. Submission starts as well on 3rd of November. And additionally, please attend the opening ceremony. It will be short but productive. Subscribe to Hedera's YouTube channel here so you can receive alerts regarding the upcoming live sessions you don't want to miss, okay? And then on the screen, please scan the QR code. It will bring you directly to the hackathon page itself. And from there, it's quite easy to navigate. All right, before I close the session, Jake, Ed, would you want to give some closing remarks?
Well, I just want to say welcome back, everyone. If you're coming from a previous hackathon, whether it's the Origins hackathon or anything else, any of the other hackathons that we've hosted, if you're new, super excited to have you on board. Super excited to support your onboarding journey to Hedera, to Web3, and to blockchain. And so thanks for also giving us that opportunity to try the network and come and build with us. And so take advantage, like my parting words of wisdom is take advantage of all the resources that will be made available to you throughout this hackathon, whether you're learning, whether you're progressing your skills, or whether you're just trying to move your project closer, to an MVP or POC. Take advantage of all those resources because these hackathons are a fantastic time period. And then you also get that incentive of potentially financial rewards if you're a winning team. So super excited and take advantage of those resources and looking forward to working with you all in the coming weeks.
Jay?
No, nothing from me. Nothing else to add.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for everyone's time, and I hope to see you on the 3rd of November during our opening ceremony. So once again, good morning, good night, good afternoon, wherever you are.
Good
Welcome
night.
to Hedera, and see you. Good night. Yes, good night. Good morning, Ed.
The need for a more interconnected world is fueling new decentralized technologies and new ways of doing business. Hedera stands at the forefront of distributed ledgers, where every interaction is not only trusted, but fast, efficient, and secure. While traditional blockchains struggle with speed and fees, Hedera's network settles transactions in under 3 seconds for a fraction of a penny. And the proof is in the numbers. Hedera is uniquely governed by a council of the world's leading institutions, ensuring transparency, trust, and decentralization. It's no wonder Hedera is the leading choice for enterprise and DeFi use cases. Everything from real-world asset tokenization to AI data integrity. Discover the only decentralized network with the governance, scalability, and security to power the new digital economy. What future will you build?